ito. So your motivation must be eternal. Not temporal, but must be eternal. When you work for man, you get frustrated easily. But when you work for God, your joy and drive remain because you're doing it unto Him. Kapag ang iyong driven ka ng mga tao sa paligid mo, at the end of the day, you're gonna be tired and sad and lonely. But if you're doing that for God, it doesn't matter. Why? Because you know that the God that we are serving is faithful and just.
Sa iyong biyaya, ako ay mamamangha. Sa iyong kalinga, panganib ay di banta. Sa pag-ibig mo, palaging ligtas ang puso. Mangusap ka, lingkod mo'y nakikinig. Sa ingay man, bulong mo'y manatanggi. Pag-asa ikaw, sa iyong puso ko'y tahanan. Sandigan ang puso ko ay nahanap sa iyo, Kristo. Pangalan mo'y kalungan ko, kailan pa man. Minsan papakantayin po natin mula sa umpisa. Mangusap ka, lingkod mo'y nakikinig. Sa ingay man, bulong mo'y natatanggi. Pag-asa ika, sa iyong puso ko'y tahanan. Sandigan ng puso ko. Sandigan ng puso ko ay nahanap sa iyo, Kristo. Pangalan mo'y kalungan mo. Sandigan ng puso ko ay nahanap sa iyo,
Kristo. Pangalan mo'y kalungan ko.
kailan pa man. Minsan pakantay po natin, mangusap ka. Mangusap ka, lingkod mo'y nakikinig. Sa ingay man, bulong mo'y natatangi. Sa puso ko'y tahanan. Minsan pa po katay po natin, sandigan ang puso ko. Sandigan ang puso ko ay nahanap sa iyo,
Kristo.
pangalan mo'y. Come on, lift up your hands, come on, sandigan. Sandigan ang puso. Isang totoo, Panginoon, sa aming buhay.
Hanap sa'yo.
Kristo, pangalan mo'y lamang noon, ngayon at bukas. Wala sa ating mga puso. Kung gusto niyo po itaas inyong kamay, tayo po'y malaya. Kailan may dilalayo, ikaw ang yun ang totoo, Panginoon. Kaya narito kami, Panginoon, nagpapatotoo. Ikaw ang aming kaligtasan at aming kalakasan. Minsan pa, mula sa ating mga puso, kailan man di lalayo, ikaw ang kaligtasan ko. Binabalot ng iyong lakas sa piling ko. Ako'y ligtas, kailan man di lalayo, ikaw ang kaligtasan. Jesus, binalot ng pag-ibig mo sa piling mo, ako'y ligtas. Sandigan ng puso ko ay nahanap sa'yo. Ang pangalan mo'y kalungan ko. Sandigan ng puso ko nahanap sa'yo. Itaas po natin ang kanyang pangalan sa lugar na to. Come on, sa ating kailan man di lalayo, ikaw ang kaligtasan. Binabalot minsan pa, kailan man binabalot. Kailanman di lalayo, ikaw ang kaligtasan ko. Binabalot ng iyong lakas sa piling mo, ako'y ligtas.
For today, we're going to talk about as our response to the covenant of God to all of us, and in preparation for this covenant season po, no? Again, last week we talked about seeking the will of God. Today, we're going to talk about committed to God's work. Somebody shout, committed. And this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about committed to God's work. Right? Committed to God's work. So let's open our Bible in the book of Colossians chapter 3. Let's start reading in verse 23. And ang sabi ng maraming mga scholars, about 1/3 to 1/2 of the Roman Empire's populations were slave or bond servant. No, now hindi naman po ito yung tipong mga aliping sa gigilid lamang o namamahay po. In fact, slavery in that culture was not always race-based. It included conquered people. So yung mga nasakop, debt servants, saka those born into servitude. Now, slaves could be household servants, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, field workers, tutors, or managers, but they were considered property and had limited rights. Kaya ko po sinabi yung konteksto para mas lalo ho nating maintindihan ito. Kasi ito ho yung isa sa mga bagay na gusto niyang sabihin sa mga tao sa Colossians. And I believe, hindi lang para sa kanila, kundi para din po sa atin. Let's start reading in verse 23. It says here, that's why, whatever you do, somebody shout, whatever. Sabi mo sa katabi, whatever. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Ang bawat isa ho sa atin dito ay may kanya-kanyang commitment at may mga bagay tayo na committed sa isang bagay. But the reason why I'm telling you that, I hope na hindi rin pumawala sa atin yung commitment natin sa gawain ng Panginoon. That we're gonna be committed to the work of God. And when we talk about commitment, wala na ho tayo ibang pag-uusapan dito kundi si Jesus. Jesus modeled true commitment. Because when we talk about commitment, this is the philosophy or the mantra, whatever it takes. Gagawin ko to because I'm committed to this. And in the book of Luke chapter 22, 39 to 44, makikita po natin dito yung commitment ng Panginoon sa kanyang assignment. Because we all know the story, Jesus went here on earth, yes, but to fulfill His assignment to die on the cross. We know, theologically speaking, the hypostatic union that He's 100% God and human, right? But here, ipinakita po niya ang kanyang pagiging tao na siya rin ay struggling at linalabanan niya ito. Why? Because he is committed to fulfill the assignment. Going back here in verse 39, it says here, Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and His disciples followed Him. On reaching the place, He said to them, pray that you will not fall into temptation. He's actually prophesying over them na, please don't trade your faith because time will come that I'm not going to be here. So He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed. And then this is the prayer. Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done. Yung emosyon nandito na ho, no? Am I gonna quit? Or am I going to fulfill this? And then an angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. I was actually reading this. Bakit kailangan siyang encourage ng anghel? Diyos siya. Again, hypostatic union. 100% God and human. Inalaw po niya yung kanyang pagiging tao. But still, He is sovereign. And so, the angel encouraged him. And this is what happened. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly. And his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Jesus modeled true commitment by surrendering His will to the Father. Alam ko ho na marami ho tayo nakikita rito. Marami ho tayo mga lodis, mga nakikita natin na from time to time ginagaya natin. But at the end of the day, when we talk about commitment, let's focus our eyes to Jesus because really He fulfilled His assignment. And talking about commitment, siya po ang nagpakita nito. Now, talking about commitment, ano ho ba yung mga bagay na dapat nating malaman? Or probably alam na natin, pero kailangan nating ma-remind ulit pagdating sa commitment. Number one, it begins with your heart. Sabi mo sa katabi mo, your heart. Your heart. It says in Colossians, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. Of course, contextually speaking, the word whatever there is in the will of God, not in the opposite of bad things, but in the will of God. So whatever, ano man ang gagawin mo, ano man yan, work at it with all your heart. Ano pong ibig sabihin ng all your heart here? From the soul. Galing sa ilaliman ng iyong pagkatao. Meaning from your innermost being with sincerity, passion, and full commitment, not reluctantly or half-hearted. It means when you're serving the Lord, here in this church or probably outside in your own family, you do it with all of your heart. Why? Because you are doing that for the Lord. Ito ay ginagawa mo sa Panginoon at hindi para kung kani-kanino. I want to tell you, God desires full-hearted effort. Full-hearted effort. Yung puso at hindi lang may puso, yung buong puso. Alam niyo po, ang mundong ito, marami hong ginagawa ang mundong ito para nakawin tayo sa maraming mga bagay. Diba? Kapag hindi mo gusto yung pinapanood mo, ano lang, lilipat mo lang. Tama ba? Kapag may television naman, kapag hindi mo gusto, you get the remote, ilipat mo lang. You listen to music, tawa ka na, diba? Ilipat mo lang. Kaya nga wala ho sa atin dito faithful sa isang channel eh. Come on now. Right? We want to flip and flip and flip. In music, kapag hindi mo na, wala rin dito sa ating faithful sa isang album. Kaya nga may playlist eh. Right? This world is teaching us not to be committed to one thing. But Jesus modeled that. And again, Paul reiterated that in the book of Colossians to be committed to the work of God with all of your heart. Somebody shout all. But when we talk about God, God sees our heart. And that's why in Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23, it says here, above all else, that's why you need to guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. Kapag ang puso kasi ay nagkaroon ng dumi, na dungisan, apektado ang commitment sa Panginoon. And so from time to time, that is why you go back to God from time to time and say, God, please purify my heart. It means your heart is contaminated and you go back to God and say, Lord, pwede niyo bang linisin ang puso ko? Pwede niyo bang ayusin ang puso ko? Because this is the heart to your commitment. The heart is the engine of commitment. Ngayon, 'di ba dati when you were young, when you were new in your faith, you're so passionate to God. Right? Lord, I love you so much. But now what happened? Because something happened to your heart. And so you go back to God and say, Lord, sorry. Lord, nagbago na po ako. Lord, hindi ko na ginagawa yung mga dati kong ginagawa. Dati passionate naman ako sa inyo. Maybe right now you're watching this video. Lord, bakit ganon? Lord, ba't nagbago yung commitment ko sa iyo? Because your heart is contaminated. And so you go back to God and say, God, please help me. Let me tell you this, excellent comes from inner devotion. Kaya hindi na tayo nagiging excellent din sa mga bagay na ginagawa natin. Kasi nga, apektado na yung puso natin. Hindi na natin somehow gusto ang ginagawa natin. Affected na ito. Probably clouded na tayo ng maraming offer ng mundong ito. Let me tell you this, talking about heart work is holy work. Why? Kasi, diba, tayo kapag tinignan natin ng tao, hindi naman natin nakikita yung puso niyan eh. Tama ho ba? Kita mo ba yung puso ng katabi mo? Of course not. Right? Hindi mo makikita ang puso niyan at ang Diyos lang ang nakakakita ng puso niyan. And so when God sees your heart, God is really pleased when he see that your heart is really beating for Him and for His kingdom. Somebody shout heart. Yung katabi mo, sabi mo sa kanya, how's your heart? How's your heart? Kamusta ang puso mo? Number 2, it matters to the master. Going back in Colossians, it says here, as working for the Lord, not for your boss. Because when you work to your boss, you work for the Lord. This is the motivation here. As working for the Lord, not for human master. Paul is not negating respect for earthly authority. Earlier, actually, he told them to obey in verse 22, right? Instead, he's elevating the true source of accountability. The true source of accountability is God. Bakit mo ginagalingan? Kasi yung mata ng Panginoon nakatingin. Ang lahat ng bagay na ginagawa natin ay nakikita po ng Diyos. Your true boss is not your employer, supervisor, or ministry leader, your pastor. No. It is God. It's none other than Jesus Himself. God sees what others miss. God sees what others miss. Pwedeng hindi makita yan ng ibang tao, pero ang lahat ng bagay na ginagawa natin ay nakikita ng Panginoon. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, to encourage you, yung mga bagay na ginagawa mong kabutihan sa simbahan natin, some of you here, ang dami nyo ng sakripisyong ginawa sa simbahan ito. In fact, some of you here, may nangyaring hindi maganda bago ka pumunta, and still you're here. God saw that. Nakita ng Panginoon yun. Some of you here, nag-away kayo, di ba? But you're still here. May nangyaring hindi maganda or probably hindi sa loob ng simbahan, sa office ninyo, di ba? And still ginagawa mo pa rin yung tama. Nakita ng Diyos yun. Maraming mga taong gustong manira sa'yo. I want you to know na ikaw ay nakita ng Panginoon ang lahat ng sakripisyong ginagawa mo. You may feel overlooked by people, but you've never you're never invisible to God. Hindi ka po invisible sa Panginoon. Hebrews chapter 6, 9 to 12, it says here, even though we speak like this, dear friends, we are convinced of better things in your case. The things that have to do with salvation. God is not unjust. He will not forget you, your work, and the love you have shown Him as you have helped His people and continue to help them. We want each of you to show the same diligence to the very end so that what you hope for may be fully realized. We do not want you to become lazy, but to imitate those who through faith and patience inherit what has been promised. This is the God that we are serving. Diba? Probably some of you here, naiinis ka na sa boss mo kasi lahat na lang ginawa mo para sa kanila at hindi ka pa rin napapansin. I want you to know that promotion comes from the Lord. Ang blessing ay galing sa Diyos. Ginagamit lang ng Panginoon ng mga tao. Pero at the end of the day, God's plan will always prevail. Alam ng Diyos ang gagawin niya at kung kailan niya gagawin ito. So your motivation must be eternal. Not temporal, but must be eternal. When you work for man, you get frustrated easily. But when you work for God, your joy and drive remain because you're doing it unto Him. Kapag ang iyong drive, driven ka ng mga tao sa paligid mo, at the end of the day, you're gonna be tired and sad and lonely. But if you're doing that for God, it doesn't matter. Why? Because you know that the God that we are serving is faithful and just. So every role has kingdom value. Just want to encourage some of you here na maraming sakripisyo at sinasakripisyo po para sa gawain ng Panginoon, no? Mga maagang dumadating dito. Probably some of you here, may mga bagay kayong ginagawa na hindi alam ng katabi mo, ng asawa mo. I want you to know that it matters to God. 1 Corinthians 15:58, it says here, Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourself fully to the work of the Lord. Because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. I remember this story. This is not part of my note, but I just remember now. When I was in seminary, I was studying. I remember this story of my professor. Yung tatay po niya ay pastor. Siya po ay I think third generation pastor na po siya. Pero yung pastor, yung dad niya, tapos yung lolo niya, pastor din. Pero ito pong lolo niya sa katatay niya ay napaka-generous kahit hindi sila mayaman. Like generous in time, generous in kung ano man ang maibibigay nila sa mga miyembro, time, kung ano man po, no? And so na nag-aaral na po siya, andun po yung challenge, of course, syempre dahil hindi naman sila mayaman, no? But to tell you this testimony, alam niyo po nangyari? Dahil po sa generosity at mga tanim ng kanyang tatay at lolo, kabutihan, alam niyo po, nakapagtapos sila ng pag-aaral, nakapag-master pa siya sa Harvard. The point is that, ang lahat po ay nakikita ng Panginoon. Probably ikaw hindi ka umani ngayon, pero yung anak mo. Yung kabutihang ginagawa natin, this is biblical. You will reap what you sow. Tama ho ba? Nagtanim ka ng kabutihan, aani ka ng kabutihan. Nagtanim ka ng kasamaan, of course, meron po talagang consequence. And that's why we need to God and ask for forgiveness. Number 3, somebody shout 3. Number 3, it deserves its rewards. It says there in Colossians, you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Again, the context would be, he's talking about to the bondservant, to the servants. During that time, wala silang inheritance. Talking about the law of the land, wala silang makukuha. Pag namatay ang isang alipig sa gigilid at namamahay, or any kind of servant and bondservant, walang makukuha sila. That's the legal way of doing that. Wala. But then again, here, Apostle Paul encouraged them, ano sabi? You will receive an inheritance from the Lord as your reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. It is the King of Kings. It is the Lord of Lords. It is the owner and the author of your faith that you are serving. So after all these things, I want you to know, magkikita kayo ng Panginoon at sasabihin niyo sa iyo, well done, good and faithful servant. Pumasok ka sa aking kaharian. I can sense na marami ho sa inyo rito na marami na po kayo na sakripisyo. Pero ipagpatuloy nyo lang po yan. Huwag po sana na dumating tayo sa point na maniniwala tayo sa sinasabi ng kaaway, sasabihin natin na tama na, sobra na yung 20 years, sobra na yung 10 years or 30 years na paglilingkod ko sa Panginoon. Remember, I was talking one time to one of our pastors, sabi ko sa kanya, maglilingkod tayo hanggang dulo. Pag send ko ng message na yun, naiyak ako eh. Wow, that's something. At ang sarap na may mga kasama ka po no, sa gawain na magkakasama kayo no, sa paglilingkod sa Panginoon. I hope ganun din po tayo. Maybe some of you here as a family, no? That's your goal. Na madala mo ang iyong pamilya sa simbahan. That's your commitment sa Panginoon. Na maglilingkod tayo. Me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Let me tell you this, there is an inheritance. May pamana na nag-aantay sa'yo. Hindi ka nakalimutan ng Panginoon. Probably lumipas na ang maraming panahon sa buhay mo. Bumagsak ka na, pumalya ka na, parang feeling mo, wala na, tapos na. I want to tell you, God's plans will always prevail. May plano siya sa'yo, at hindi lang basta plano, magandang plano sa buhay mo. There is an inheritance. Let me tell you this, God honors every act of faithfulness. Every act. Yung mga hindi nakita ng tao, kitang-kita ng Diyos yun. Yung mga pag-iyak mo sa gabi na pinapanalangin mo yung anak mo, yung asawa mo, lahat nakita ng Diyos yun. Yung pagsabi mo ng no sa kasalanan and the sin was there in front of you and you said, no, I want to obey God. I love God. I will not watch porn. That's faithfulness. That's faithfulness. That's integrity. And God saw that. And God honors every act of faithfulness. That's why in Matthew 25:21, it says here, his master replied. One day, maririnig mo to sa Panginoon at sasabihin niya sa'yo. Imagine the context would be, ang dami mo pinagdaanan sa buhay, magkikita kayo ngayon ng author of the world, the one who created you, at sasabihin niya sa'yo, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Dadating po ang araw na mawawala na ang sakit na nararamdaman mo. Dadating din ang araw na talagang, wow, Lord, thank you for this kind of life that you're gonna give to me. And so my encouragement would be, hold on. Hold on to your faith. Huwag mong ipagpalit ang pananampalataya mo, kapatid, sa anumang offer ng mundong ito. Yes, magkakasala ka, but please go back to God. Huwag kang tumakbo, palayo, palapit sa Diyos at sabihin mo, Panginoon, I'm sorry, I sin and I want to go back to you once again. And I want to fulfill and obey and serve you, God. And so serve with heaven in mind. Heaven in mind. Not money in mind. I'm not saying that money is bad. We all need money. But at the end of the day, lahat ng ito ay mawawala at ang magpapatuloy yung mga bagay na eternal. And that's the plan of God in our lives. So serve with heaven in mind. Let your goal be to please Christ, not to impress people. Keep your eyes on the bigger picture because God's approval and your eternal reward is waiting for you. As I end, and this is not a rebuke for all of us, but probably as a reflection for all of us here. May tatlong uri po ng tao sa atin po ngayong kalagitnaan. Even those people right now watching. There are 3 types of people in the church. No commitment, kasi probably bago pa lang po kayo, no? Hindi nyo pa nauunawaan ng lahat. Pero marami sa atin probably partially committed. Hanggang ngayon natatakot ka pa din na, Lord, pag binigay ko ba tong buhay ko, magiging maayos ba talaga? Natatakot ako kasi baka mamaya maubos ng lahat ng pinaghirapan ko. And few, fully committed. Nasaan ka dito, kapatid? This is not a message of condemnation, but a message of reflection. Nasaan ako dito? 2,000 years ago, Jesus died for me. His blood shed on the cross, body broken. Pinatawad ako sa kasalanan ko, binigyan ako ng buhay, at may plano siya sa akin. But Lord, I'm sorry. Maybe some of you here because you don't have commitment to God or probably partially committed to God. And so today, I hope as we worship the Lord that you're going to give your life once again to God and say, Lord, use my life. Gamitin mo ang buhay ko, Panginoon. Here's the thing. May plano tayo, pero mas maganda ang plano niya. May plano ka sa pamilya mo, mas maganda ang plano niya. Just be committed to the work of God. Na sana po, ang mindset natin, ang lahat ng gagawin natin ay nakaangkla sa plano ng Panginoon. Because if you do that, I want to tell you, you are in the will of God. Let's close our eyes.